Earlier today I found a spider in my bathtub, so I turned the water on and flushed it down the drain. There's no point to that story, but it's a hell of a lot more interesting than anything that you can find in To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
Now just look at the cover of this book, okay? You know exactly what kind of book it's going to be. The cutesy fonts, the teenage girl wistfully looking off into the distance while she writes in her journal or diary or whatever, the pink font for the author. You know exactly what kind of book this is going to be. It's going to be a cutesy teenage love story. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, make no mistake, that the reason I chose to read this book is because it sounded like a cute story. And it wasn't. It was, at times, it was so terrible that it was funny, but for the most part, it was just pretty boring. So what's this book about? Well, it's about a girl named Lara Jean, or Lara Jean. One of those two. I don't really care which. It's something Jean. And she writes letters to boys that she falls in love with, and then she puts the letters in a hat box that she has in her room and just leaves them there forever. And when she writes a letter, it's her way of saying goodbye, and that she no longer loves them, I guess. And at some point, the letters get stolen and sent out to all the boys. Now, that could be a cute idea, you know, a bunch of guys find out that she suddenly used to, or in some cases currently still does, have very strong romantic feelings towards them, and she has to react to and deal with that. Now that's not an amazing idea, but you could work with it, you know, it could be something nice, just a nice, cute little romance story. You could have some fun with it, make like a love hexagon instead of a triangle. I mean, like, honestly, I've heard worse ideas. The problem is that this book just sucks. I know that's a very vague way of putting it, but it's terribly written. That's the best way of putting it. It takes 66 pages. I made a note. It takes 66 pages for the letters to actually get sent out. And I think we only ever read 3 of them, actually, and there's 5. Because the other 2 boys are, they live in different towns or something. I don't remember. The recording part of my brain just turns off when something gets too stupid. And honestly, the plot of this book has pretty much nothing to do with that. Like, the real plot of the book is that one of Lara Jean's friends finds out that she used to be super in love with him, so she pretends that another guy is her boyfriend. And again, that's not a terrible idea. It's just that it's not at all what the book was advertised to be about, and also it's just horribly portrayed. Because, I mean, literally the way they do it is Lara Jean runs into her friend Josh after he found the letter, and he's like, "Oh, so you still love me?" And she's like, "Yeah, but I have a boyfriend." And then she sees this other dude named Peter walk by, who she also used to love and got a letter, and then she literally runs up to him and starts kissing him in the middle of everything. And then later she's like, "Hey, you should pretend to be my boyfriend." And he agrees to it for his own reasons. And, I think that scene happened a little over 100 pages into the book, and that was the moment I knew this book was bad. At the beginning of this book, there's parts of it where it's so terrible that it's honestly hilarious. It's like I'm reading The Room, almost, if any of you have seen that movie.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. It's a terrible movie, but it's hilarious because it's just so inept and strange. And the beginning of this book is almost like that. Like, none of the characters act like humans. None of the things that happen to them make any sort of sense. It's like the book was written by an alien or something trying to understand human culture for the first time. So, like, at one point, Lara Jean gets into a car crash, and the guy who crashed into her just looks at his car and he's like, oh, well, I'm good. See you later. And then he drives off. And she doesn't stop him or get his information or anything. And then they never reference that again in the rest of the book. It served no purpose. It was fucking ridiculous. Just the way Lara Jean describes things is strange. Like, she goes off on these odd tangents about how cute things are, or about, or she tells short anecdotes about random shit she did with her sisters and or her mother at the time, or when her mom was alive, because obviously the mom's dead in this kind of story, and none of it really connects to anything, so in a way it's kind of mesmerizing how stupid and poorly put together it is. So it is kind of funny in that sense in the first half. In the second half there's a lot less to that, so I can't really say that this book is so terrible that it's funny or that it's good. Like, Lara Jean is fucking batshit crazy. Well, maybe it's not fair to say batshit crazy, but she's a dumbass. It takes her until the very, very end of the book to find out how the letters got sent out, and I won't say how, but it's extremely fucking obvious from, I think, the moment it happens, how the letters got sent out and who sent them out. Again, she kisses some random dude she barely knows just to get a rise out of one of her friends, and then decides to start lying about it, and then lying to cover up that lie. So, you know, really good plan there, Lara. Just solid plan. And another thing that Lara Jean did with her sister, or her older sister, was apparently that they made a pact that they would never have sex until they got married unless they're really, really in love. And that's a direct quote, by the way. So the pact means nothing then. Like, if it was don't have sex until you're married, at least that's an actual promise. Like, it might not be effective or anything, but it's an oath that they're taking. Adding the really, really in love loophole makes the whole thing pointless. Because, I mean, not to disparage teenage relationships and all, but I'm pretty sure all of them are really, really in love after a very short period of time. So it's very pointless to word it that way. And the fact that Lara Jean takes it so seriously throughout the book is honestly funny to me. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a terrible thing to promise that, but it's funny that it was gone about in such a stupid, offhanded, inept way. I will say that later on in the book, I started to kind of understand her a little bit better. Like, she's never a good character by any means, but you see her kind of nervous loneliness, and honestly, I did sort of get that. I connected with her a little bit in that regard, but overall it was still shit. She wasn't a good character. And another thing that bothered me about this is that all the cutesiness in the story just feels forced. You know, it's not cute like, oh, hey, the sisters are just best friends or anything. It's cute like someone who's never had any interaction with any teenage girls, and then they're trying to write about what they think teenage girls will find cute, so they're like, okay, she has pink in her room, and her and her sisters have a bunch of weird traditions that they do, and really, it's everything short of having a stupid secret handshake is what they do with this. And it's not cute, it's forced and annoying, and I didn't like it. And remember what I said about this book being terribly written? Well, I'm just going to read this one paragraph here and let you get an idea of what happened. So this is right after Lara Jean's letters get sent out, and she finds out what's going on. I make myself an ice cream sundae right in the carton. Chocolate sauce, whipped cream, chopped nuts, the works. I take it back up to my room and eat it lying down. I feed it to myself like medicine until I've eaten the whole thing. Every last bite. That's the end of a chapter right there. Like that's supposed to be some particularly poignant moment. She's eating ice cream. Okay, she's not getting a divorce. She's eating ice cream, and they think it's dramatic enough to end a chapter on that. Really, the majority of chapters in this book end like that, because it's like, it suffers from James Patterson syndrome, where a bunch of them are 2 or 3 pages long. And honestly, it wouldn't even be that big a deal if the chapters flowed into each other nicely, but they don't. They'll have a completely different scene in every chapter, and sometimes they'll even have something where it's like sort of getting kind of interesting, and then it just cuts short and moves on to something completely different. And so, like any actual drama or enjoyment or romance that I could have found in this book was just snuffed out at every opportunity. The only area where I was kind of actually getting into it was near the end, because different new stuff starts happening. Lara Jean's sister comes back from college for a little while, and one of the boys does something pretty nasty to her, which I won't exactly say what it is, but suffice to say, yeah, it's pretty bad, depending on your point of view. I mean, some people it wouldn't bother them, but it makes sense that it would bother Lara in this case. I'm not going to give her too much shit for it. And it's actually kind of interesting, but then every time they start having a conversation about it, it lasts like 3 sentences, and then it gets cut off, and they move on to something different, and I'm like, oh, well, that was almost good. Almost. And then the book ends on this weird cliffhanger, I guess. Like, it's not even really a cliffhanger. It feels more like the book just stopped rather than ending. And I know that there's 2 more in this series, so I really don't know what they're going to write about, because very little even happened in this book. So how are they going to stretch this out over 3? I don't know, but it's pretty dumb, honestly. This is not really a good book. I was expecting a cutesy romance story, which is not really bad. I was actually kind of in the mood for that sort of thing. That's not what I got. If that's what you're looking for here, don't bother with it. There's really not much in it. At times, especially in the first half, it's honestly so stupid and out there that it's funny. But for the most part, I just avoid it. That was the review. Subscribe, like, watch more of my shit, comment, blah 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 blah.